Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Asha Patil from SNDT Women's University, Mumbai. Today we are going to see in detail the module on Analytic method and Eclectic method part 2. The learning objectives of this module include: learners will explain the nature and structure of Analytic method, discuss the Analytic method used in different stages of literacy movement, compare Analytic method and synthetic method, describe the innovations in Analytic method done by different people in the field, explain Eclectic method, which is a combination of synthetic method and Analytic methods. Friends, in the last module, that is in part number 1, we have seen the word technique in detail. Today we are going to discuss in detail sentence technique and eclectic method. Let us see first the sentence technique. In this we are going to discuss the Thommer method. This is one of the analytic methods. It starts with small sentences which go up to make a short story. Beginning with a sentence, the method breaks into analysis of the keywords of the story into subwords and finally the analysis of these subwords into alphabets. After the mastery of the alphabets, these alphabets are used in synthesizing new words and thus building up a new vocabulary by the adults. A similar method known as Nutan Shabda Paddhati is used in Marathi by Bombay City Social Education Committee. Let us see the example of this method. I will narrate a story and tell you how this method can be used for teaching adults. मुंगी नाल्यात पडते आणि बुडू लागते. झाडावरचा पोपट ते पाहतो. पटकन एक पान तो पाण्यात टाकतो. मुंगी त्या पानावर चढते. पान तरंगत तरंगत काठावर येते. काठावर आल्यावर मुंगी पोपटाकडे बघून हसते. काही दिवसांनी एक शिकारी त्या झाडाजवळ येतो. झाडावरच्या पोपटावर नेम धरतो. एवढ्यात मुंगीचे लक्ष शिकाऱ्याकडे जाते. ती शिकाऱ्याच्या पायाला कडकडून चावते. शिकाऱ्याचा नेम चुकतो आणि पोपटाचा जीव वाचतो. This is a story. The teacher selects keywords from this story. Now let us select the important words from this story, that is mungi, an ant, popat, that is parrot, shikari, that is hunter, name dharne आणि जीव वाचतो. Once the keywords are selected, the teacher encourages the learners to make separate vowels and consonants from these words, and again the learners make new words. Now the learner is required to make new words and sentences using the same method described earlier. Let's see the same story narrated in English by Professor Chakravarti.
Ant falls in the drain, starts drowning. The parrot views it from the tree. He quickly drops a leaf in the water. The ant climbs on to the leaf. The leaf floats ashore. The ant smiles at the parrot. After a few days, a hunter approaches the tree. He targets the parrot on the tree. At that moment, the ant sees the hunter. She bites the hunter on his foot. The hunter misses his aim. The parrot's life is saved. The teacher now selects keywords from this story: ant, parrot, hunter, aim, and saves life. Now the learners are encouraged to separate the words into alphabets and then make new words and sentences using the same method as was used earlier.
Now let us discuss about eclectic method. As stated earlier, the eclectic method is a combination of the synthetic method and analytic method. It is also known as analytico-synthetic method. The integrated literacy method that was developed by Mrs. Helen Wood of Nilokheri is primarily a synthetic method, and the latter is the most significant unit. However, this method uses eclectic approach. The salient feature that differentiated this method from the traditional method are use of meaningful words right from the beginning, choice of different sequence of letters and matras, that is vowels, the postponement of teaching of numbers and arithmetic till the last 5 lessons, which total up to 70 in all. The author lays very great stress on the method of teaching and preparation of appropriate instructional materials. These materials give a great relief to the insufficiently trained teachers. She also emphasizes the use of a tested framework within which teacher has to work. The integrated literacy method therefore goes into minutiae details regarding the sequence of teaching and the way of dealing with each item of instruction. The techniques used in this method follow from the significant characteristics of adults. It is assumed that adult learners have a higher level of understanding, richer experience and greater vocabulary as compared to children. These are to be used to the best advantage for building the skills in reading, writing and arithmetic. This could be done through initiative, self-education and independent learning by the adult learners with the help of teacher. Rote learning, which entails a heavy load on memory, is reduced to the minimum. It substitutes mechanical repetition with an understanding of the principles underlying correct reading and writing. It is assumed that this will facilitate learning of correct reading and writing. The next method is improved pace and content of learning, which is popularly known as IPCL and analytic method. During the meeting of experts held in New Delhi in June 1988 on the topic of evaluation of adult learners, the issue of learning materials for basic literacy also was discussed at length with a view to improving slow pace and low quality of progress of literacy efforts. The concept of improved pace and content of learning, that is IPCL, emerged through a number of such meetings held in different parts of the country. With a view to consolidating and strengthening literacy teaching, the literacy method was systematized and standardized. But the important thing to be noted was that the method used in this approach was basically the analytic method, but also resorting to mixed methods. This underlines a fact that no single method is useful for literacy teaching, but it is the combination of methods that works better. The IPCL laid down 7 steps to be followed while teaching adult learners. It is quite interesting to have a look at these 7 steps. The first step is initiating a discussion on the picture given with the lesson. By asking questions and sub-questions and with the help of the answers, brings the learners to the topic of lesson. The second step includes reading of the lesson. The teacher writes the lesson given in the primer on a blackboard. Slowly but loudly, the teacher reads the whole lesson. The teacher asks the learners to look at sentences when he is reading loudly. While reading the sentence, the teacher moves finger from below the sentence. Also brings to the notice of the learner that reading is to be done from left to right. Reading the lesson is done sometimes twice or thrice. Then the teacher takes a follow-up reading. That means first the teacher reads the lesson and sentences and asks the learners to repeat each sentence after him. The follow-up reading may be done thrice or 4 times. The step 3 says sentence reading. The teacher uses sentence strips which are separately prepared for sentence reading. He shows a sentence strip to the learners. He reads it loudly and asks the learner to follow him. After doing the reading of sentence strips 3 to 4 times, he asks them to find out the same sentence from the lesson. This is followed by step 4, that is word reading. Now, the teacher takes each sentence separately and asks the learner to read each word in the sentence individually. In this way, the learners get to read all the words in a sequence. The 5th step includes reading consonants and vowel signs. Let us look at the first lesson in IPCL primer prepared by State Resource Center, Pune. The first lesson says Ya. Ya means come. Shikaila ya, come for learning. The learners are then asked to point out the word ya and explains that the original alphabet in it is ya. Then the vowel sign a is introduced to them. The teacher shows them how ya becomes ya when joined with the vowel. In the similar way, the consonants and vowel signs in the word Shikaila are to be explained. Then the teacher comes down to the formation of new words using the same alphabets. For example, in this lesson, the new words are Kai means what, Shikal means will learn. The next step, that is 6th step, is formation of new words. After explaining letters and vowels separately, the teacher asks the learners to form new words such as Kai, Shikal, etc. Then the learners may be asked to play a game of words and try to form as many new words as possible. For example, Kaka, Kisha, Kalkal, etc. The last step, that is 7th step, is reading of new sentences. The teacher gives the learners an exercise of forming new sentences from the words formed in the earlier step. For example, Kaka ya, Shashikala ya, Sheila, Shashikala Shika, etc. Thanks to IPCL approach that laid down the 7 steps in literacy teaching so systematically that the same were adopted to a large extent in the country, as a result of which the total literacy campaign got a substantial boost in India. Let us see the next method, Naya Savera method. An innovative teaching technique called Naya Savera technique has been developed by Saksharta Niketan, Lucknow. drawing from its long experience in the field of literacy. Saksharta Niketan Lucknow used the literacy material based on all the prevalent teaching techniques, methods and tested them in the field. Therefore, accepting the strengths of the prevalent teaching techniques and removing the weaknesses as far as possible, the Naya Savera technique was prepared. It is based on mixed method. It includes a primer which aims to provide basic knowledge of reading and writing and a teacher's guide. The primer consists of 16 lessons, of course with exercises at the end of every fourth lesson. The last lesson is concerned with numbers in Hindi and English up to 100. The first 12 lessons introduces 2 or more consonants and 1 vowel with its sign. Each lesson has 2 or more keywords which are made with the letters introduced in the lesson or by recombining them with the letters already learned. Small stories appear from lesson 4. These stories are concerned with an adult's daily life. The primer introduces 500 words, out of which 339 are functional words and the rest are for drill purposes. Almost all important grammatical words appear in this primer. Apart from the primer, there are 3 graded readers which substantiates the knowledge obtained from the primer. This teaching material takes the participants to their goal of functional literacy. Its prescribed duration is 1 year. To conclude, it could surely be said that the field of adult literacy has been constantly giving new challenges and the same were dealt with by a number of people in a number of ways. This has given rise to various versions of literacy teaching methods. The literacy teaching has been posing a challenge to the innovative talents of the people. According to the local situations and the creativity of the teacher, any version of teaching method or a combination can be used. To summarize, I would like to say this module has put a spotlight on the theme of analytical method of literacy teaching. It is one of the 3 important methods of literacy teaching, that is synthetic method, analytic method and eclectic method. It is pointed out that the analytic method is so termed as in this method the mental process of breaking down the larger units into their constituent elements. For example, a sentence into words, a word into the consonants and vowels. The model has laid down that analytic method is opposite to the synthetic method. It has then enumerated 4 techniques used in this method, namely story technique, sentence technique, phrase technique and word technique. The module has then discussed in detail the characteristics of the word method, which is used in coming down to vowels and consonants. Thereafter, the module has enumerated different versions of analytical method evolved by very dedicated persons such as Pathic method, picture word card method, Nai Kiran approach which has been explained in detail. Other versions using sentence method like Tomar method, so also the most popular version of Naya Savera developed by Saksharta Niketan Lucknow is also explained in detail. After discussing various versions, the module has put forth an example of eclectic method which is a combination of both synthetic and analytic method. The version, namely the integrated literacy method, was developed by Mrs. Helen Booth of Nilokheri. Lastly, the module has aptly mentioned improved pace and content of learning, that is IPCL approach, used largely in total literacy campaign in India. The literacy method used in this approach was basically the analytical method. The module has given 7 steps laid down in IPCL. Since these steps have contributed to the consolidation and standardization of the method of literacy. Thank you.